Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell. In this video, we're going to look at Kotter's 8-step change theory. So we've spoken about how difficult it can be to implement change due to resistance from key stakeholders, and employees being one of the main stakeholders that will resist change if it's going to affect them, and more often than not, it will. So Kotter developed an 8-step theory on how to best manage the change process to try and really help you implement or help an organization implement change successfully. So it's important with this theory, it's important that you know each step in the theory and you know it well so that you're able to describe the theory in depth. But also, more often than not, you'll probably have to apply the theory to either an organization you've studied this year yourself or to a case study on a SAC or an exam. So make sure that you sort of understand each step, not just being able to regurgitate it, you understand what's involved in each step, so that you can actually apply it. And I also encourage you to also do further reading on this theory because there is lots and lots written about it, so it's easy to find more information. So step one in his theory is to create a sense of urgency, which, convincing people within the organisation of the need for change. If an organisation or manager comes in and says this is why we're going to change and these are the reasons, and doesn't really create any urgency, people aren't likely to get on board with it. So it's important to create that sense of urgency so that people go, wow, hang on, we really need to embrace this change because it's crucial that it happens for the organisation, and that can help get people on board and if they see the real purpose for the change. Step two, form a powerful coalition. This is where you're forming what's called a guiding team. To lead the organisation through the change. So that you should get people with different skill sets in order to lead the change, but also it's important that the people involved in that coalition are well respected, so that when they're communicating with other employees and other stakeholders, that they're more likely to accept the change that's actually occurring and what they're saying. Step three, create a vision. So sort of beginning with the end in mind, giving a clear direction of where the organisation is heading. It's also important that the vision has some flexibility set into it because often, especially with a major change, the organisation might have a pretty clear idea on where they want to end up, but also, along the way, it could be a long journey that things need to be altered or changed along the way as they, come over hurdles. I suppose things may change as they're actually implementing the actual new state that they're doing. So it's just important that there's some flexibility in that vision, but it's important to have the end in mind. Once you've actually created a vision, it's important then that vision is communicated now to all stakeholders that are going to be affected by the change. So being open and honest with stakeholders about the vision, talking about the vision regularly. So not just holding one meeting and saying, all right, this is the change that's going to occur, this is when it's going to occur, this is what it's going to look like, but constantly talking about the vision can really help, Kotter found, can really help drive a change successfully. Step five, remove obstacles. So things such as cost, bureaucracy, could be structure, could be communication channels, could be technology, trying to remove all those obstacles so that and then empower employees to really embrace the change and work towards the change, do their best work to implement the change. That's the next step. So, for example, if a school was going to create a new campus or even a new set of curriculum, it could be that one of the issues is costs. Now, if the principal says, well, we want to create, this amazing curriculum, these amazing courses where, students go out and deal with the real world, then that's fine and that's a great idea and a really effective change if it happens. But if then they say, but we've only got a really small budget and we can't do this because of the cost, we can't do that because of the cost. So trying to really remove as many obstacles as possible to allow employees to do their best work to embrace the change and make the change a reality. Step six then is to create short-term wins. Often a change can take a long time, especially a large change. It might be 2, 3, 4 years in the making. And so it's important to celebrate short-term success along the way. What that does is it can help reinforce that the sacrifices that the people within the organisation are making are actually paying off, rather than just waiting for success at the end. Creating short-term wins can really maintain and create momentum towards the change. Step seven, now that the change is being implemented and we're achieving some short-term success, it's important to not let up. Kotter found that one of the major reasons change fails is because victory is declared too early. So he created this step to make sure that the organisations keep up with the change and continue with the change constantly, so that it's not just a short-term thing. We're trying to make this a long-term effect within the organization, and that leads into step 8, which is what we call institutionalize the change, and that's where the change is anchored and becomes part of the corporate culture. So making a continuous effort to ensure that the change is seen in all aspects of the organization, so that if a new person comes into the organization, they are trained and inducted into what this change is, so it really becomes part of the culture, and that's the last step. So just to give you an example, I'm going to use Australia Post here. Now, this information, some of it's factual, some of it I've made up, so I don't want you to use this as your end of year, your study, apply it in an exam or anything like that. This is just to demonstrate some understanding of what an organization may go through if they were to use these 8 steps. So please do not use this for your end of year exam. This is just used as an example to demonstrate how Kotter's theory could work. So first of all, Australia Post, some of the changes that they're implementing, they're really going through a restructure because of some financial losses in the past, and that changes in technology and the way consumers, I suppose, use Australia Post and how they interact with them has changed over the past. So they're implementing some new procedures, new technology, getting rid of but reducing their letters, the letter section of the business, and increasing the parcel section, as well as increasing their business letter part of the business. So what they could initially, we could look at it and go, well, first of all, they created a sense of urgency. Losses up to $1.5 billion over a 5-year period created urgency in itself. So all of a sudden, employees and stakeholders realised that, all right, something does need to change. So that sort of urgency was then created. Now, then they can form a coalition team, guiding team, a really strong coalition, where what it did, the main team that they created was it involved senior executives, but bringing them from different parts of the business and allowing them to work together, so use their expertise. Then they created a vision, so created a vision to cut back on the letter service, increase the parcel business and parcel services, also improve their customer relationships and how they communicate with their customers. And then they communicated the vision openly to all stakeholders, and especially in the media. They communicated it really clearly of what was going on, so that also customers were aware of what the changes were. Then they removed obstacles, so there was some structural obstacles in the first place that stopped this sort of change from happening. So they removed those so that staff could be trained on the new processes. They lobbied to the government because that was a real hurdle. They couldn't just change prices or change the structure of their letter delivery service. So they had lobbied to the government in order to implement that new structure. So that was a hurdle, an obstacle that they had to overcome, and then they did that. They had short-term wins, so they created short-term wins still early on in this change. It's still ongoing. It's still pretty current. We're looking at it right now, but they've celebrated internally and also in the media wins such as a new pricing scheme, customer relationship management systems that have been successful, so they're celebrating those. Then they need to, this is probably looking into the future, but consolidating, continuing to make changes to improve the customer satisfaction, getting into the digital lives of their consumers. That's one thing that they're really trying to do, to really then institutionalize it and embed that in the culture, so that the digital world is here to stay. They understand that, and so the constant training and implementation of new marketing methods is going to have to be constant in order to embed these changes into the culture at Australia Post. So that's just a real simple, basic example. As I said, don't use that in an exam. That's just a lot of that information I've made up. Some of it is factual, but a lot of it I have made up. So, but just to give you an example of, an organisation that's going through change, how they could use the 8 steps. So just to recap, Kotter's 8-step theory: create a sense of urgency, form a powerful coalition, create a vision, communicate that vision to stakeholders, remove obstacles and empower staff to embrace the change, create short-term wins and celebrate those short-term wins, consolidate, where we don't let up, and then institutionalize the change into the culture. So for questions, activities, or more of this video, then come on over to teachingbubble.com.